So a few reasons why you might want to consider studying in Australia. So obviously, if you're interested in dentistry, you have a pretty good idea that it's quite competitive here in Canada and North America. So um, it is a really awesome, opportunity that you have. We work with some really amazing schools, really well-renowned schools. You're going to get a wonderful education with some amazing facilities, especially for dentistry. All of our programs are also recognized here. So Canada and Australia have a reciprocal agreement, so you can practice your degree in Canada with nothing additional. I'll talk about that at the end as well. And yeah, not only does OzTREKK support you throughout the entire process, but obviously your universities are very supportive as well. Very hands-on approach. You get a lot of clinical experience in our programs. And then not only kind of the curriculum that's really amazing in Australia, that lifestyle. I always kind of say it's like Canada, but a little bit more laid back, much better weather. Especially, it's always easier to do these presentations when it's starting to get really cold outside here in Canada. And I show beautiful pictures of beaches and everything like that. Very outdoorsy lifestyle. Typically, our students acclimatize very well in Australia. Not necessarily a culture shock. Canada and Australia have very similar components in terms of their education system, healthcare system. So you are getting a really, like I said, a really quality education from some really amazing universities. And so I'm going to get into our programs here. So these are all of our universities that offer graduate and undergraduate dental schools. So I will talk a little bit about the graduate entry and the undergraduate entry and the differences between those things. But these are our universities. So as you can see, you have quite a lot of options, and depending on, you have factors that are important to you when choosing a university. We go through all of those things with you. So our student advisors will not only let you know where you're eligible and competitive to apply, but they'll also kind of hopefully help you figure out what's going to be the best fit for you. So for example, if you want to be in a big city, smaller town, Sydney and Melbourne often compared to Toronto and Vancouver. So if you really like, a big diverse city, lots going on, um, large city, large institutions, they might be a really nice spot for you. If you prefer somewhere a little smaller town, our most inland university is Charles Sturt University in orange there. You can see that just in New South Wales, just above Sydney there. James Cook University, if you want somewhere very, very hot and tropical, obviously the more north you go, the better weather it's going to be, essentially, or the hotter it's going to be, more tropical. Up in Queensland there, Brisbane, Gold Coast area, we have some really amazing institutions there. If anyone's heard of Surfers Paradise, that's actually located in the Gold Coast there. And again, right along Queensland, you're right along the Great Barrier Reef, right along the Daintree Rainforest up north there by James Cook. We also have our New Zealand University. So if you are interested in New Zealand and you're interested in dentistry, you're lucky, because that is the program that our New Zealand University offers, University of Otago. So there's so many different options. And like I said, our student advisors will work with you to help you figure out not only where you can apply based on the admission requirements, but also helping you work through all of the things that are important to you and where you are going to be happiest during your time studying dentistry. And so I'm going to go through, as I mentioned, there's a difference between graduate entry and undergraduate entry. So our graduate entry programs are kind of the more traditional route, I like to say. So if you're coming from North America, you do need an undergraduate degree. So completing a 4-year undergraduate degree and then going into a 4-year graduate entry dentistry program, kind of same, more traditional route here that students normally take. And then we also have our undergraduate entry program, which you can actually enter straight from high school. So in Australia, this is common that you can go into professional programs straight from high school. You can also apply to these programs either with a partially completed degree or with a fully completed degree. So if you are in your final year of university here, you actually have both the graduate and undergraduate options that you can apply to. If you are in high school, first, second, or third year, you can apply to these undergraduate entry programs. And these programs are 5 or 6 years programs compared to the graduate entry of the 4-year program. So these kind of fast facts here, I'm going to go through a little bit more in depth as well. This is kind of generally speaking what you'd be looking at. And as you can see, both of these programs are CDAC recognized degrees. which means that they're both fully recognized here. There's no disadvantage or advantage for doing a graduate or undergraduate program. At the end of the day, you are graduating as a dentist, and you can take either one of these programs and have the exact same qualifications at the end. And so I will just note too, so if you notice here, the percentage of received at least one offer, I'm going to get into a little bit more about the admission requirements and stuff in just a second, but I do like to preface that because these, competitive averages, competitive DATs, and GPAs are a little bit different than here in Canada. I always just like to explain it in the fact that, for our Canadian dental schools, they're extremely, extremely competitive. And for Australian dental schools, they are just as competitive. But as an international student, you're actually not competing with any of the domestic students. So our student advisors will actually only submit competitive applications. So they will be completely honest with you when they're taking a look at, your DOT scores, your GPA, letting you know exactly where you are eligible and competitive for. And if you don't meet some of the minimum requirements, they won't be submitting applications for those programs and give you your other options. So that's we have a really, really awesome offer rate. And so if you are starting to apply, I know many of you in the chat were getting ready to apply. Our applications are now open for February 2027 start dates. So if you are looking to apply to an undergraduate program starting in February 2027, or if you are in your final year of university and you want to start or graduated and you want to start a graduate entry program in February 2027, now is the time to kind of get started applying. So the application year and cycle is a little bit different in Australia. So in Canada here in North America, most of our programs obviously start in September after our summer holidays. And in Australia, they also start after their summer holidays, but their summer is our winter. So things are a little bit different. So the beginning of their school year is actually in February, and our applications open a little over a year before the program begins. So generally speaking, if you're beginning applications anytime between now and say February, you're in a really good position to kind of start those applications, writing a DAT or a UCAT, depending on which program you're applying to, and those kind of admissions tests, and getting everything you need into OzTREKK. And then from there, like I said, you start the application, you'll have a couple of months to get all of those things in, your transcripts and whatnot. And then generally late spring, early summer, interviews start to our deadlines will start to happen, interviews will start to happen. And then generally starting in the fall, our schools will begin to issue offers. And then our whole pre-departure program happens. We actually have our first pre-departure event coming up in a few weeks in Toronto and in Vancouver, getting our students ready to head over in the new year to start programs in February 2026. So you definitely, if you're, when you apply through OzTREKK, you'll get to know our student advisors, Jennifer, very well. She'll be keeping in contact with you throughout the whole timeline. Generally, like I said, for most students, in and around a year before you get ready to head over. And so these are our universities that are offering our graduate and undergraduate programs. So like I said, you do have quite a few options. So our graduate entry programs, so those 4-year programs that you have to have a completed bachelor's degree, your options are the University of Melbourne, or New Zealand University of Otago, University of Sydney, and University of Western Australia. And then if you have completed an undergraduate degree, or you are coming from high school or with a partially completed degree, you can apply to all the ones below there. So Adelaide University, Charles Sturt, Griffith, James Cook University, La Trobe, University of Queensland, and also the University of Western Australia. So moving into our graduate dental degrees, I always like to say as well, you'll see some programs are a Doctor of Dental Medicine, some are a Doctor of Dental Surgery. Those titles are all a little bit different, so we do get a lot of questions about that. Definitely not something that really matters. All the titles of the programs are a little bit different, but at the end of the day, you are graduating with the exact same qualifications, and you are going to be a dentist at the end of the degree. So as I mentioned, I would get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty here. So as I mentioned, these programs are 4 years. Tuition estimates are looking between in and around 90 and 100,000 Australian per year. That's for our 2025 intake. So you're actually saving about 10% in Canadian, so about 10% cheaper than that in Canadian dollars. And I will be talking about finances at the end of the presentation too. And as I mentioned, those admission requirements, the GPA, the DAT scores, and what's competitive is different because you're not actually competing with the domestic students. So you'll see there the number of international seats. So this does vary between each program. So, larger institutions have larger programs, larger cohorts, so there's more slots reserved for international seats. So anywhere between 20 and 45 are available between all of those programs. And then again, programs starting in late January, early February, and starting your application between, October and February is a good time. May would be on the latest. We usually recommend students write the DAT no later than May to be eligible for those deadlines that will start coming up in kind of end of May, June. And then just kind of talking about the competitive GPA and the competitive DAT. So this does vary a lot. And generally what I always tell students is there's really something for everybody. Part of my job at OzTREKK is I run a lot of information sessions with different student groups, and I run a lot of different events on different campuses across Canada, and chatting with students who maybe have never even considered studying in Australia before. And what I hear a lot is students saying, oh, I would really love to go into dental school, but, my GPA just doesn't cut it, or I really don't want to write the DAT. So I don't know if I'm going to do it. And I always say that there's definitely something for everybody, depending on, what your strengths are. So for example, if your GPA is on a little bit of a lower side, and that's kind of what you're struggling with or anything like that, things are calculated a little bit different on our end. And there are some universities who place less weight on that. So for example, University of Sydney, they actually only use GPA as a hurdle. So that's why we have 2.7 there as competitive. Because for University of Sydney, as long as you meet that 2.7 minimum, it really comes down to your DAT score.
I'm just going to jump in here, Sarah. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Because this year, Sydney did things a little bit different than
yes,
what we were expecting. So I want to put an asterisk on that it's possible that the assessment and ranking may have changed based on the results we've seen this year. We are having conversations with the university to get a little bit more clarification in advance of the next cycle, but I just want to mention that it's possible that that sort of standard may be adjusted.
Yep, and that's definitely why OzTREKK exists, because we're constantly in contact with our admissions teams at our universities, keeping up to date with absolutely everything so that we can keep all of our OzTREKK students up to date on everything. And yeah, so generally kind of speaking, so that might be an option for you. If you're the opposite and your GPA is really high, but you're not getting the DAT score you want, or you don't want to write the DAT, University of Otago doesn't actually require it. And some universities place a lot more weight on the interview. So if you've done a lot of shadowing experience and you think you can really rock an interview, there might be some universities that would be a great fit for you. So again, that's kind of where OzTREKK comes in, and we can definitely help you through that entire process and letting you know where you're going to be most competitive to apply. And then prerequisites, of course, we will help you with that as well. Melbourne and Otago do have some recommended studies and prerequisites. And when you submit a transcript into our student advisors, they will assess those and make sure that you are eligible to apply. And then those interviews will happen either online or in person. And again, OzTREKK will be letting you know exactly all the information as you move forward through the entire process. And so these are undergraduate programs, universities offering from high school with a partially completed degree or completed post-secondary studies, except for University of Western Australia, if you have started a university program, they actually only accept students coming directly from high school. And so again, just kind of going through these fast facts here. Oops. These are 5 or 6 year programs. Because many students are coming from high school and you maybe haven't completed a undergraduate degree. You have an extra year or two of those kind of foundational studies. Tuition, you're looking anywhere between 49,000 and 88,000 per year in Australian. Same situation with the number of international seats, does vary between schools. And the same application timeline for these programs as well. And so you'll see there we have some the minimum and competitive GPA for high school and from university. So from high school, competitive is in the high, mid 90s, I would say, to be competitive for most schools. And then from university in and around that 3.5, 3.6 to be competitive for a decent number of schools. Those prerequisites are coming from high school as well, or a grade 12 equivalent. And for these programs, you do not actually have to write the DAT. So I did say, if that's something that's not your strength, the undergraduate options might be a really nice too. We do have many students applying for the undergraduate degrees, and even if they have completed a bachelor's degree here. So in place of the DAT, they do have the UCAT or the ISAT. This isn't something that all of the schools require. However, you do open quite a few extra seats for you that are available to you by writing the UCAT and the ISAT. And again, those interviews are online and in person in Canada. And so using your degree, as I mentioned, Canada and Australia have a reciprocal agreement. So it is the exact same kind of qualification. You're writing the same NDEB exams that you would be if you graduated from anywhere here in Canada, for instance. So amazing. It's very easy, very fully recognized here. So you have the ability to practice in Australia and in Canada once you graduate. And financing. So obviously the tuition, so you are paying international tuition fees for these programs. And many students, they're kind of using a combination of ways to finance their studies. So you do have, obviously, if you have any personal savings, family savings, that's always amazing. You can use provincial loans like OSAP, BC Student Aid, Alberta Student Aid, any provincial loans here in Canada. And then most of our students are using a line of credit. So basically what that entails is it's all done, all your financing is pretty much done through Canada before you head over. And we definitely encourage students start to think about this early on in the application process. So you have a good idea initially about how much you might be able to be funded to help finance your studies. And essentially, so once you're going into a professional program like dentistry or medicine or law, students, the banks know that you're going to be able to, going to have a high salary once you've completed the program and you're working as those professionals. So you're going to be able to pay it back. So they are willing to fund more money for professional lines of credit. This actually isn't officially applied for until you've received your certificate of enrollment and you've accepted an offer. But like I said, we do encourage students to kind of work with the banks, and our student advisors could put you directly in touch with people at the banks. So you have a good idea about how you might be able to fund in your studies. Most students do need a co-signer as well, whether it's a parent, aunt and uncle, or whoever to help support them through those financing. And the really good news too is Canada has a very strong dollar compared to a lot of other countries. And in general, Australia and New Zealand pay their employees quite well. So their minimum wage is like up to $23 an hour now. And we do have many students that are working while they are in the program. They've actually just upped the working hours on the visa that our students are heading over on. So it used to be 40 hours every 2 weeks, and now it's 48 hours every 2 weeks. And then you're also free to work as much as you want on like during summer holidays and school breaks. So we do have many students that are working, whether it's kind of, in some sort of field of dentistry, or if they're working just, picking up a few shifts at a coffee shop. Coffee culture is absolutely huge in Australia. So if you are a coffee drinker, then Australia is definitely the place for you. And yeah, you get also like extra time on weekends if you're working on weekends. So students can actually kind of make quite a bit of money. Like I said, just picking up a few shifts a week, whether it's for your tuition, your rent, or your travel expeditions or anything like that. And so that's kind of a really nice option as well to help finance your studies. Our student advisors will give you any, scholarships that are available across our programs, but generally speaking, some of those scholarships, they do vary between university. Some universities are better than others. Some of them are quite competitive, but generally speaking, we do tell students, apply for any scholarships that you're eligible to, but don't bank on a scholarship to fund your entire studies. I know I've had a lot of students ask me in the past, I play soccer, and so I want to go there and play soccer and kind of get a full ride scholarship. It's not like it is in the States. So generally speaking, most of our students are getting the bulk of their funding through those 3 ways mentioned there. And so if you are interested in applying to any of these universities, and if you're brand new to OzTREKK, welcome. We can help you through absolutely everything from application to arrival. So basically what OzTREKK is so we are an official representative. So you saw all of our universities that offer dental schools. We actually represent 17 different universities in Australia and New Zealand. And we can help students with many programs. So if you are interested in any programs other than dentistry, if you're considering dentistry or medicine, we do have students that are applying cross programs, and most of our students are applying to more than one program as well. So we have our specific student advisors for each one of our programs. As I mentioned, Jennifer is here as one of our dentistry student advisors, and you work directly with them, and they will help you literally every step of the way. All of our services are completely free as well. So we're fully funded by our universities. Essentially, they pay us to deal with all the international side of things and send them the best prepared students from North America. Most of our universities also waive the application fees as well. So we can help you through the entire process and save you a little bit of money. And like I said, all of our most students are applying to more than one program. So even if you're applying to multiple programs in Australia or in Canada too, if you're looking to kind of keep your options open, we can help you do that. And how it works is, so as I mentioned, our applications are open right now. So get started with opening an application or getting in contact with one of our student advisors. You can send in a transcript to them, let them know your DAT score if you've written it already, and they can give you a really good idea about where you're initially going to be eligible and competitive to apply. And again, they will work with you through all of those factors that I mentioned and helping you choose which programs are going to be right for you to apply to. And then once you're ready, you send all of your documentation into our student advisors. We have an OzTREKK portal that you can upload everything to. And then our student advisors pretty much take it from there. So they will, compile your application, submit it on your behalf, walk you through accepting your offer. And then essentially we have an entire pre-departure program that students go through. You get access to an entirely different OzTREKK website called our boarding pass, where we help you, let you know what are your accommodation options, what visa do you need, how do you get a cell phone, how do you get a bank account in Australia, all of those different things to make sure that you're fully prepared, not only for the program and, through the application process, but also getting ready to actually move there. And we also do a lot of pre-departure events where we help you get ready to go and kind of meet people that are also going to the same program, same university as you. We have a lot of our OzTrekkers that actually meet their roommates through some of our orientations. So, and just kind of like I said, create that community before you head over. Many of our students haven't actually been to Australia before they make the move and apply. So our job is to really make you fully aware of absolutely everything from start to finish and make sure that you're fully prepared to start the program. And so, as I mentioned, we have Jennifer here and her partner Heather are our dentistry student advisors. So you'll be working with them consistently throughout the entire application and pre-departure journey, and they are your go-to people for any questions about the process and how your application is moving along. When I say starting an application, our applications are very streamlined. So for most of our programs, it's very different than the North American applications. Initially, you're actually just starting an application with OzTREKK and sort of opening applications for universities that you want to apply to. It takes about 5 minutes. If anybody wants to get started on an application, you can scan that barcode right now. And it takes like a little about 5 minutes to start your application. It's a very easy fix. It's really just opening a file with OzTREKK. And then once you open some university applications, you'll be made fully aware of when your application is ready to submit to the universities, when it's actually been submitted, when you've been invited for an interview, and of course, keeping you up to date with everything as you move along. And if you do have any questions, obviously we're going to get to the Q&A in just a moment. But if you have any questions that come up after tonight's webinar, you can always email Jennifer and Heather at dentistry@oztrekk.com. Give them a call, or you can also book a chat with them on our website at oztrekk.com. And we do have lots of different upcoming events. Even if you are interested, we have, myself and the rest of our outreach team are traveling and doing information sessions and running different faculty events all throughout the year across Canada. So you can keep up to date with all the events and where we're going to be and any more that you can attend. And if you are interested in any other programs as well, we also do different webinars for other main programs that you can apply to through OzTREKK.